Hey guys, welcome to my first at-home demo. I'm sorry the camera's kind of funky. I wanted you guys to be able to see the countertop too. But today I'm going to demo day one of the night before pancake recipe that we use in 6th grade. So just bear with me since this is the first one and we'll get through it. So what I want you to do is just treat your home kitchen like we would at school. So the first thing that you should always do with any recipe is read through it entirely. That way you can make sure, one, that you have all the ingredients that you need, but two, also to make sure that you have all the supplies you need and tools in order to make the recipe. So I'm going to have the recipe posted, but I also am going to read through the ingredients today and directions for day one only. The other thing you want to make sure is that if you have longer hair, make sure that's tied back, and also make sure that you have washed your hands before making the recipe. So once you've done those two things, you're going to want to read through the recipe. So I have a recipe right here. So our ingredients are 1.5 cups all-purpose flour. You can use a combination of whole wheat flour and all-purpose flour if you'd like. A tablespoon of baking powder, half a teaspoon of salt, a 1/4 cup of granulated sugar. This also can be something that's substituted if you want to try honey or a different sugar substitute. 1 1/4 cups milk, 1 egg. You can substitute egg whites also if you don't want to use the whole egg. 3 tablespoons melted butter, a teaspoon of vanilla, and then optional if you want to add any mix-ins like fruit or chocolate chips or things like that. But you don't really need those until tomorrow. So for the directions for day one, if we were in the lab, we would be getting our sinks ready for washing dishes, but since you're probably making this at home right now, however you wash dishes at home, whether you hand wash them in the sink or if you just put them in the dishwasher, just make sure you're mindful of what's happening as you go through the process. You also want to make sure that you've gathered all of your supplies. I have mine all over here on the counter. I don't want to move the camera because I feel like it's at a good angle right now, but make sure you have everything before you start. In a large bowl, you're going to whisk together your flour, baking powder, salt, and sugar. Then you're going to make a well, so you're going to make a hole in it. I'll show as we go. In the center of the dry ingredients, and add the milk, the egg, which we're going to crack in a separate bowl first so we can check for shells and make sure it's okay, melted butter, and vanilla. And at this point, after you crack the egg and handle the raw egg, you want to make sure you wash your hands again. You'll whisk that until smooth, but try not to overmix. And then since you are making this at home, you can just cover your bowl with wrap. If we were making it at school, we'd put it into a large gallon-sized bag and put it in the refrigerator overnight. Then at that point, you'd wash everything, clean up, and then you would just wait. So they would be all ready for you. So tomorrow for breakfast, they would be ready to go. You could just throw them on the griddle and have a nice breakfast. So that's what I'll do tomorrow. So I'm just going to do day one today, and then day two tomorrow morning I'll show you the next steps. So we are going to start. I am just using this bowl here, and I'll make sure you guys can see that as we go. So I'm going to start, and the first thing is to measure your all-purpose flour into the bowl. So here is a good chance to practice your measuring skills also. So with flour, we're going to measure 1.5 cups. So I have my 1 cup dry measuring cup. With flour, you're always scooping and then leveling off. So I'm just going to scoop this into the bowl because we always want to keep flour nice and light and fluffy. So we're going to scoop this. We're going to over scoop. I'm going to grab another bowl real quick so I have something to level it over. So this is just going to be my spare bowl just so I don't make a huge mess over here. So we're just going to keep scooping. And then you're going to take your flat edge, let me move this, and you're just going to level it off. Do not pack it in. We never pack in flour. So here is our cup. And then we also need 1/2 cup, so I'm going to grab my 1/2 cup here. And just, again, we're scooping it in. I'm going to do it over this bowl so I'm not making a huge mess. You could do it over the sink, or if your container is a little bit bigger, you can do that. And then again, just level it off. and we'll add it into our mixing bowl. I'm going to try not to waste any of this and pour this back into my flour container. And then we're good with that. The next thing that goes in here is our tablespoon of baking powder. So we have our baking powder. If you watched my previous video, I showed you how to test your baking powder and baking soda to make sure that it was still good and hadn't expired. So the nice thing with baking powder is it has a built-in leveler for us. So we're just gonna take our tablespoon, we're gonna scoop it out and then kind of tilt it. And as we go across that edge, we have our tablespoon. So that goes in with our flour. We also need half a teaspoon of salt. So I'm gonna grab half a teaspoon. I'm gonna move my main mixing bowl out of the way because we never wanna pour directly over the main mixing bowl, always something separate. That way if you accidentally pour too much, it catches in the separate bowl and you don't ruin your thing. So you're gonna pour and you can level this off too, and then that goes in with our dry ingredients. And then the last thing that goes in there is a 1/4 cup of granulated sugar. So I'm gonna pull out my granulated sugar. With granulated sugar, we don't have to scoop out like we did with the flour. So you really can just dip, scoop, and level your sugar. So I'm just gonna dip right into my measuring container here. I'm gonna lift up. Again, I wanna level off. And then that's gonna go right in there. And we're good with our dry ingredients. So the next thing that we wanna do is we want to get a whisk. And we're just gonna take our whisk and we're just gonna whisk this all together. That'll keep it nice and fluffy with the flour. I always make the kids in my class show me what you would do with a spoon. If we were stirring with a spoon, we'd be going like this, but because we're whisking, we want that quick motion. So we're just gonna do that just to combine all of the ingredients. And then that is all of the dry ingredients that we have. So we're ready to add in the wet ingredients. So what I'm gonna do first, because we need to melt the butter, is I'm gonna get that melted and then add in the other things. It's hard to see here, but on your butter, oh there it is, that's a good shot. These are all measurement markers for your butter, so you don't have to kind of estimate. It gives you all the different measurements. So for in here, we need 3 tablespoons. So I'm gonna take my cutting board and I'm gonna count over the 3 tablespoons, leave the wrapper on, I'm just gonna cut through. This can go back in the refrigerator, and this is what's gonna get melted in the microwave. So I'm gonna unwrap it. Do not put it in the microwave with the wrapper on. And I'm just gonna cut it into smaller chunks here. Just gonna put my glass bowl in there. Make sure you're using a microwave safe dish. Just gonna put it in smaller chunks. That way it melts faster, and this is gonna go into the microwave. I'm gonna start with 20 seconds and see how it goes from there. All right, so while that's melting, we are going to add the milk, egg, melted butter, and vanilla. So we need 1 1/4 cups milk. So I have a 1 cup liquid measuring cup here. We're gonna make a well. So we're just gonna make a little hole in the center. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just want flour all around, and I know that you guys can't see that. Not a good shot, but just make a little hole where you're gonna put all of your wet ingredients. So we're gonna measure 1 cup first. So remember, when you're measuring liquids, you are going to measure it on a flat surface. You're gonna pour in slowly. You're gonna get down at eye level, and you're gonna pour in till you reach the mark. So we need 1 cup and 1/4 cup also. So I'm going to pour this in the middle. We have our little hole in the center. So 1 cup. And again, look at it at eye level. 1/4 cup. Pour that in. Let me grab my recipe here. Our egg. So we always crack our egg into a separate container, and the reason for that is because it is easier to get shells out of here than it is if you cracked it right into your main mixing bowl. So just right on the counter, crack it, and that can go in the garbage. You look, check for shells, and then that gets added in. And because we were handling raw eggs, the other thing we want to do is wash our hands. So I'm going to do that real fast. Remember, when you're washing hands, make sure you get 20 seconds. You can sing a song, whatever you need to do, but make sure they are nice and washed. And you can wash your hands really at any point while you're cooking. It's important to wash them often, especially if you're sneezing or if you have pets and you're touching your pets. You want to make sure that you're washing your hands often and drying them off. So we have that. Let me check in the microwave. So after 20 seconds, we still have butter. So I'm going to put it in for another 20 seconds. And then while we're doing that, our last wet ingredient that we're adding is vanilla. So I have a teaspoon of vanilla. We're going to shake it first. We're going to grab our teaspoon. And again, you want to measure over something other than your main mixing bowl just in case you pour too much. And then that's going to go in there. Check my butter. I'm just going to take a little measuring spoon and stir. All right, so we have our butter, so that goes in too. So that is all of our liquid ingredients. So we're just going to whisk everything together. Your main thing here is you don't want to over mix. So you just want to keep doing that motion, especially to whip up that egg that's in there. And it's going to get thicker. It's going to be a little lumpy. That's okay. You just want to get the main lumps out. Trying not to over mix anything too. So once everything looks mixed, I know sometimes we have a good time stirring and whisking things, but this is one of those things you don't want to over mix because they won't turn out well. So we have our batter. Kind of hard to see. If we were making this at school, we would transfer this into a Ziploc bag right now. So since we don't have a ton of refrigerator space, but if you're making this at home, you can just cover this with plastic wrap. I actually have a lid for this container, so I'm just going to put the lid on and put it in the refrigerator overnight, and then tomorrow I'll make the second video and show you how to put it out on the griddle and finish up the recipe. So at this point, you probably have a little bit of mess on your hands. I know my countertop's messy. I've got dishes in the sink, so don't leave those for mom and dad to do. Make sure if you are cooking that you're cleaning up your mess too. So take some time and clean up, and you'll be all set. And stay tuned tomorrow for day 2 of the night before pancakes. Hope you guys had fun. Thanks.